Hey guys, I'm Allie,
And I'm Q.
and welcome to the first ever episode of the Astral Project podcast. We are so excited to have you guys come along this journey with us into what it means to be alive, to be human, to be on this beautiful planet that we call Earth.
We hope you enjoy. Let's get right into it. First question, Ali. What is the human consciousness?
The human consciousness is a really difficult question to answer. I mean, what isn't the human consciousness? I feel like everything that we perceive, everything we taste, everything we smell, everything we hear, that's all a part of the human consciousness, right? It kind of goes off that theory that, you don't exist without me and I don't exist without you, that observer paradox kind of thing. So when you just ask the question, what is human consciousness? I have to say it's everything, everything around us.
You think we are connected to, say, the wildlife or plants, vegetation?
I believe so, yes.
I can agree to a certain extent. I feel as if everything that has a chemical makeup, or a biological makeup, I should say, has a spirit in some fashion. And the way I see the greater consciousness is that we are all just part of a giant web where at the very nucleus, like the very center of it, there is God, for lack of a better word. There is the ultimate or the top of the top, the astral plane, right? The astral entity that is not necessarily in complete control, because obviously we have, as human beings, a free will, which we'll also dig into another episode, talk about that. But we all are operating on our own will, off our own will, okay, if you will. um, so the web reaches everything and anything that has some type of biological makeup. I mean, even down to the smallest microbes in the ocean
Yeah.
is like, I would say, like the final point. It could even go farther than that, you know. And I agree, we are all connected, but I can't think what you're thinking. I can't think what a dog is thinking. I can't put myself in that connection. I cannot extend my reach into that connection. Does that make sense? So we're
What
connected, but we're not.
Yes. I see what you're saying where, you can't think exactly you don't know exactly what I'm thinking every second, every minute.
Hmm.
But I will say that, on a very deep level, I would argue that we do know what each other's thinking, what animals are thinking, what trees are feeling. I feel like um with the way society is right now and how technologically advanced everything is, we've kind of grown away from that uh, intuitive intuitive part of ourselves that's in tune with nature, in tune with our communities.
Hmm.
And I feel like, although you say like you can't right now, it could just be a matter of meditating on it and practicing.
Finding a deeper understanding
Yes.
to it, but
And
it takes discipline
yes, and
to get there.
practicing tuning in to those things.
Tuning in, yes. I, as you were saying that, I'm thinking of, like, say for example, I'm in the jungle, right? I have just the clothes on my back, nothing on me, no weapons. I encounter, a bloodthirsty, hungry jaguar, right? And I can look at the eyes of the jaguar and I understand that what it's trying to do, what its intention is to eat me, right?
Mhm.
Or to fight me, or to, protect its, maybe its What's the word I'm looking for when they have their pack for jaguars?
I don't know. I don't know
Do
what
they
a
also
pack
have a
of
pride? No,
jaguars
I'm not
is
sure.
called. I think they're more of a lonesome.
That's true. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. We'll
Yeah.
we'll check that out. We'll make sure to check that out. But you know what I'm saying? Like I can look in the eyes, and obviously it's a very intense exchange. You know, because now I am in fight or flight mode, and I need to protect myself.
Yeah.
But I understand the connection that is happening between the two of us is that he or she needs to eat. I need to survive, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously that is a greater predator. Some would
It's
argue.
survival instincts for both of you.
Exactly. So the survival, I would say, the survival mode that kicks in is the trigger to getting in tune with each other and understanding the mission, understanding the situation of what's happening between the two of you. Not to say that the jaguar is stupid or, you know, it has some level of intelligence, but obviously it's not at the level that I have, right? Because we are the greater species. We're technically the apex predator, right?
I like how you call it, if I could just interject really quick,
But
the greater species. And I'm going to bring up our good friend, Alan Watts.
of course.
He has a really great sort of, I guess you could kind of call it a poem. It's called The Love of Waters, I believe is what it's called. Don't quote me on that. If you haven't heard it, you should definitely listen to it. He kind of talks about how, the greatest downfall of humans is that we are so aware
Mm,
of the impending doom that we will one day die.
mhm,
And that is our greatest downfall. And to say that we are greater because we have this knowledge is debatable. He he talks about a tortoise, I believe, or a crab or something. Um, and they don't think like we do. They don't, it's inevitable that they will die at the hands of either a human or a seagull or, maybe even a fish.
they just have instinct.
Right, but they don't they do what they need to do, right? They eat, they sleep, they poop, they, mate, they have babies, um, until, one day it finds itself washed up on a beach and it hears a little click, click, click on its shell. And he says, "Who's that making noise at my shell?" It's click, click, click. And it's a seagull, trying to eat him.
Hmm.
But up until that moment, he's never thought about death. He's never thought about his finite existence on this planet. He never let that stop him from foraging for food, mating, doing what he needed to do. Um, and for us as humans to, resist that idea that our lives are finite and that one day we will die is to resist life in itself, to take a stance against life. And I don't
Yes.
know, I just thought it was a really beautiful. If you haven't heard it, it's called The Love of Waters, I believe. You should definitely check it out.
Alan Watts, shout out. Rest in peace. Um, no, and I agree. I agree. I guess where I find the trouble of understanding that concept is as humans, and I'm sure it's been studied. I'm sure scientists, throughout the years, I'm sure there has been a science about this. Lack of my understanding. Um, how do we know that?
Do we know what?
That it's never thought existentially like that. How has the tortoise never thought existentially about its own existence?
Because the difference between us and animals is that we have time. We measure our existence in time. The
As
animals, they don't have time. They have a biological clock.
Yeah,
But we have time. We say, "Oh, I'm 40 years old. I'm 80 years old.
yeah.
Like I'm going to die someday."
And we are a victim of time. I mean, time is a man-made concept.
Correct. Yeah.
So I get that. I get that. That makes sense. So where do you put, I guess, going back to the web, going back to the connection to consciousness, is there I mean, obviously, this is free form. I'm here to, get your opinion, and we're to work on our own opinions and come to our own conclusions here. Um, is there a tier level, you know, going back to Alan Watts, like, are we greater because we're sentient, I guess? I mean, what is sentient too, right? Or no,
How would you define sentient?
aware of your own existence.
I mean, yeah, I would argue yes, like they are, fully aware that they're alive. If you I would say trees, well, that's debatable too, but like trees may not be, could be argued that they're not sentient, but I believe that, mammals and fish and anything that kind of like moves around and yeah, I mean that's debatable. I would definitely say that's debatable, depending on who you ask, I guess.
Okay. Leave it to the audience for some feedback on that one, because this is a question I struggle with as well. Um, Not to necessarily say, I don't feel myself like I don't pride myself over the tortoise. I feel the tortoise has just the same chance or just the same opportunity to live out its entire existence as I do. So going back to the question I was asking, in terms of a tier system, I do somewhat see at a certain level that all life is equal. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think the web itself of consciousness, we are just as deserving of life, of existence, as the tortoise, as the jaguar, right? Um, and yeah, that's kind of my take on consciousness in a nutshell, is that it's all equal life. We all deserve an equal chance or an equal opportunity to live out the entirety of our existence, to live, laugh, love,
Ew.
um, and enjoy this time that we have to feel, to touch, to smell, to hear, to sense things, that we get to sense here in this physical form. And, you know, now to transition into,
Well, if I could
oh yeah,
interject. So as far as consciousness goes, I really honestly like where I see what you're saying with the web and how everything's connected and everything is kind of like on equal grounds and what they deserve out of their life. I believe consciousness itself goes so much deeper than that
okay,
because you can even we can even talk about where this is just one example where um so obviously we are from different parts of the world, right?
yeah,
And so me growing up where I grew up and you growing up where you grew up, do you remember how I could tell you like oh it's gonna rain? And I knew because like I could see the patterns of the leaves, I could see, I could tell by looking off on the horizon where the rain was.
sure, yeah,
And you growing up where you grew up where, it didn't rain that much and we have different kinds of trees where the trees, the trees where I grew up, like you could tell because the leaves would actually flip over
hmm,
and you could tell like that would tell you that, it's going to rain soon. And that's just a very like niche example. You can even think back to how Native Americans lived, right? Where they had a whole bunch of different things like putting their ear to the ground to listen if there's like flowing water or what are those sticks that people use that point them to like flowing water?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like kind of like fairy tale sounding things like that. Like you think about those things and I think that kind of touches on what I'm thinking of consciousness actually is. It's that intuitive, almost subconscious voice telling you things that your conscious mind can't exactly pinpoint where that information is coming from.
yeah. I get
You know
that.
what I'm saying?
That's beautiful. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
beautiful.
So, yeah, I just think consciousness is a very complex thing and
Oh yeah.
it goes a lot deeper than that and I don't really it can't really be defined in words.
Given our understanding of consciousness, where would you say, or who would you say we are as human beings? And obviously just kind of like let loose on what you believe that is. And also, where is it exactly, or not exactly, that we come from?
Yeah, those are two really tough questions.
Yeah.
Um, so the first thing you asked is who are we? Who am I? Who
Mhm.
are you?
It's a deep question.
Who are we?
Yeah. Are we the same person and living this like just a different experience?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I guess that's a very of course you're gonna get different answers from everyone you ask, especially based on their religious beliefs. Now,
Of course.
um, it is well established in this household that I am not Christian. So I do not believe in a single deity, a single God. Um, and so when you ask me, who we are, very simple words, I would say we are all children of this earth.
Mm.
We come from the earth, and one day we will return to the earth. And I I I would say that we are a byproduct of Mother Nature and this beautiful complex system, based off chemistry, based off miracles, based off chance, that we have come into existence. We have evolved from, you know, things that are now extinct, and you know, we have been here far less time than most of the things around us have been, the earth, the mountains, the trees, the waterfalls, the ocean. And I really think who we are, at least as a species, is a byproduct of this earth, and we are all children of Mother Nature.
And I'm inclined to agree with you. Um, Given my beliefs, and I do believe in our Heavenly Father. I do believe in uh, Christianity and Jesus Christ being uh, our Savior, and the entire backstory of that, the entire Bible, right? And I've subscribed to that belief system almost my entire life. Now, hearing that, what you said, you touched upon it for just a second with one simple word. You said humanity is a miracle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Are you asking me to agree
Yeah,
with you?
no,
Yeah,
yeah, I am,
yeah,
yes. No, yeah, this is, feel free to interrupt me too, if anything. Now, what I believe in and where my faith stands is that it is a miracle. We are a miracle of of God, the center of the consciousness. We are a result of His divine will. And where we come from, I feel, is not of evolution itself, even though the evidence is compelling. It is, you can argue about it literally all day. And to this day, I mean, there's going to be people, um, especially in our audience, talking about, what they believe in and what studies what they've researched. And I'm sure there'll be professionals that'll stumble upon it as well and give their piece. And literally, this is an argument that can go on for a lifetime. We won't know where it is that we come from. Even to say this is an assumption in itself, but we won't know that until the day that we die.
Why do you think we'll know it when the day that we die? Like, what makes you think
Oh, that we won't discover it.
that we will know? Like, who's to say that we just die
Okay,
and
that's
don't reincarnate and we just don't get that answer?
yeah. I can definitely agree with that too, because in my argument, like, who's to stop from God revealing Himself and then telling us what His entire plan was, where it is that we come from. He just comes out of the sky one day and just announces it all to us. I know that
Like on
sounds
a
like fantasy.
megaphone.
Huh?
Like comes down on a megaphone like
Yeah.
I've returned to
Yes.
save your
Yeah.
children.
So, the possibilities are endless, and I mean, from the things that we've experienced in today's world, I mean, we're in 2025. There's so much advancements in technology. You know, we're experiencing things that we've never experienced before in terms of the climate, you know, UFOs, all this craziness, all this these you know these all these topics that are just coming up about life, time travel, everything. You know, like I feel like a lot more subjects are being brought to light these days, and that's what we're here for. We're here to not really make sense of it. That's not our job here. Our job is to just have a discussion and just to have some sort of clarity on everything that's going on, you know, especially with ourselves, with humans, and you know what it means to be alive and what it means to love and to exist. um but going back to what I'm saying here is there's just so much information. That's what I want to get at. There's just so much out there. There's so much that's being discussed, so much that's being researched, and nowadays with, you know, I want to say the glorious gift of AI, the fact that AI exists and there's so much being put into that. And, you know, it's such an investment almost in every industry, every aspect of our life now, you know, where you can't live a day in your life now where AI is not going to be apparent or it's not going to reveal itself to you. Even just watching a video on YouTube of some, you know, new AI robot made in China or something like that that they're coming out with, or in Russia or here in the United
Even a
States.
simple Google search, most of those are powered by AI
AI,
based off of
exactly.
your digital footprint.
Exactly. So I know I'm straying here, but going back to you know, where it is that we come from and you know, who we are, it comes down to, I would suggest, you know, would you say, is it fair to say that that is your faith, that is your belief system?
What?
What your part was? That's your faith. That's your belief that we are of the earth and we will return to the earth.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about faith,
Or what would you call it?
I mean, I tend to lean towards Buddhism, which I'm sure, as most of our viewers know, is we don't have a god.
Okay.
Um, you know, even the Buddha himself isn't referred to as a god. Um, so yeah, that would be what my faith is, and I do believe those beliefs that I talked about earlier align pretty well with
Okay.
Buddhism.
Okay. That's what I wanted to answer was, if you were to call it something, what would you call it? And you're agreeing that it is faith or it is belief.
Believe,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So yeah, you know, uh, I guess it's all to interpretation. It's all by, I guess, culture too. You know, and you know, in Christianity, culture is talked about, and it's seen as, in, you know, forgive me here because I can't cite the Bible as, you know, perfectly as, say, for example, like Wes Huff or any of these great researchers that are out there that have, you know, made a name for themselves and are really good at citing the Bible. But culture is talked about, especially by Jesus, and it's seen more as, or from what I've been able to understand. Again, this could be all interpretation, and I could have it wrong. So, of course, I encourage people to correct me always, leaving that little window open.
Yeah.
So, um, culture in itself, I see it as a form of bondage or a prison. Had you not been born in culture, had you just been born naked in nature, right? You are still inclined in some fashion, somehow, to discern between right and wrong. Because you can view certain cultures, such as the practice of cannibalism. I'm sure we can all agree that cannibalism is horrific and wrong, right? But then I guess obviously that would be up to interpretation too, you know,
I
depending.
love how you look at me like that, like I eat people or something.
No, no, of course not. But I'm just saying,
Like I just said them.
yeah, no. Well, I'm just saying, you know, it's someone born in that type of culture.
They don't
What
know any
they don't
better.
exactly.
They
Well,
don't
not
know
that they
any
don't know
better.
any better. They don't know. Well, yeah, they don't know any better.
Yeah.
They don't know, you know, what other cultures are practicing, and that is seen as, you know, terrible. That's seen as horrific.
I love how you said it like that though, because it's like they don't know
Hmm.
that other people don't like it.
Yes, yes.
Because when you say it like that still doesn't make it wrong to them. Putting yourself in like the shoes of what that person might be going through, it's a really interesting kind of mind fuck
Yeah.
to go through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. and it's tough. That's what we're here to ask, is these tough questions and try to understand them better and try to find clarity. Obviously, these are kind of extreme, and by no means do we mean to offend anybody. But it's just, you know, uh,
Just to get the gears turning a little bit.
exactly, exactly. That's the point, is to get the gears going in the head and then come to your own conclusions on differentiating between right and wrong. Now, circling back, and I know I do this a lot because I like to talk
Talking
about.
tangents.
So I do, I do. I'm always thinking of a million things at once, and I tried my best to always make sure that I connect the dots and I come back to why I even went into that tangent in the first place. You know, and I myself struggle to understand why that happens. You know, but obviously that's a whole nother conversation. But the culture, just going back to culture and going back to God, or going back to what we believe in here. Um, Without culture, would you say that an individual, a human being, was to believe in God, or was to believe that there is something greater than themselves, and that there is a connection there between them and a greater being, a greater entity?
See, to be without culture is to be without other humans. Can we agree on that? To be without culture is to
Yeah.
be. So, to be without culture, to be without humans, to be brought into this world, with still all the flora and fauna, all the little animals and big scary animals and the trees and the water and the mountains and um of course I would think that you would see everything as you see yourselves. That's what I would like to believe, because that goes along, with my faith, is that um to be without culture, to be brought into this earth, to be without other humans, you know, you're you have to be in tune with the world around you.
Hmm.
You have to have respect for it. And of
Absolutely.
course, that respect that you have for the earth, I believe that would turn into and shape your beliefs, because uh, being brought into this world in that way kind of almost resembles like our understanding of pre what's the word called, like cavemen, but there's a scientific word for them, I can't think of it, but like cavemen, where you have respect for fire because you know it hurts you.
Hmm.
You have respect for the water because you know it can drown you. You understand that there are things in this world that have power over you as
Hmm.
a human being. But you also understand that as a human being, you have power over the things around you as well.
Yeah.
Your prey animals, what you eat. You have respect for the trees and the fruits and the vegetables that grow around you because you understand that, you know, like if I harvest too much of this thing and I don't leave any left, then it's not going to come back.
Yeah.
So, just I believe that you would come to an understanding that um there is a higher power, but you are also part of that higher power. And
Okay.
that everything around you is all connected. So like if you want to talk about gods, it would be like I am a god, this tree is a god. If you want to put that label on something, like the animals around me, they're all god.
Okay.
They're all a part of
This is good. Okay.
Mother Nature itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not so I think the big difference between like my beliefs and Christianity is that Christianity, it attributes everything around you to a higher power that is apart from yourself.
Not necessarily.
Whereas,
But okay, go ahead.
but it
Continue.
is, because you would never say I'm on par with God. I
No,
have the power of God,
absolutely not.
right? So in my beliefs, it is a shared power. It is not held by one single entity.
Okay. That was a lot of good points, and I enjoyed that. So okay, so to touch upon one thing that you said about us being a god ourselves, and just as the tree is a god itself, or a squirrel, or the tortoise, or the jaguar, they're gods themselves, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You see no limitation as to that comment, that statement?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess this would also kind of touch upon your interpretation or anyone's interpretation of what a god or god is, but you don't set a limit on, like, why can't the jaguar conjure fire? Why can't it control the weather? Why can't it um instantly have its food come to its mouth instead of it having to hunt for it and kill it and then bring it back to the pack or bring it back to its young,
Well,
right?
I would argue that, part of this great being that we are all a part of is also the laws of physics,
Sure,
the
sure,
laws
yeah.
of gravity, the laws of, you know, time. Um,
Unfortunately, time does is a thing because we make it
you know,
so.
it's because it's all a part of the same entity, the moon, the sun, the Earth's gravitational pull, the you know, the tendencies of fire and of earthquakes, the tectonic plates, and
Hmm.
that's all a part of it as well. So, of course, like, it, you can't, there's no like limitations. I mean, there's limitations physically because of those things. Now, if you were to ask me, am I able to be hurt as a person?
Hurt physically or just in general, emotionally
Just in general,
hurt? Okay, okay,
either physically, mentally.
okay.
Now, I could argue that, with that, and this is a whole nother subject, that there are no limitations, and this kind of goes back to consciousness and, how we perceive stimuli in the world around us.
Hmm.
Because also, going based off my beliefs, I am the creator of my reality,
Okay, okay,
and I do have to some extent, I do have control over it in terms of, the things that affect me, in terms of, like, pain or
sure.
urges
Uh-huh.
or desires.
Okay,
Um, because I do firmly believe that we are the creators of our own reality, and that we are the center of our own universes, right?
okay,
And I do believe through meditation and practice that you do have control over a lot of things in your life that a lot of people would say that they don't have control over, right? For example, if you were to pinch me right now, right? Okay, okay, it would hurt me. But that pain is just nerves that travel through my body and up to my brain,
hmm,
and it is my brain processing it as pain. And I do firmly believe that, through meditation, that we can limit our we can how do I say this? We can train our brain to perceive things in a different light.
got it.
We have full control over that, and how our brain perceives the world around us. Right? So you could pinch me right now, and through meditation, through practice, I could teach my brain to perceive it as something other than pain.
Okay,
Right? Does that make sense?
perfect sense. I
Okay.
completely understand because, um, and I'm sure I've told you this before. There are certain levels of pain that I have experienced in my life, mostly physical, where it's like I convert that in my brain to understand it as, instead of saying ow or saying like agreeing with myself, I guess agreeing with the norm that if I step on a nail that it hurts and I'm going to, wince, I'm gonna jump back and try to avoid that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just feel like, okay, that's interesting. It doesn't hurt as bad as I thought it would. How much deeper can that nail go before I actually start saying, ow, this is painful. I should stop doing this. Same thing with fire, right? You put your hand over a fire and you get closer and closer and closer, and you're kind of just testing how
How?
how your tolerance, I
Yeah.
guess, would be
Yeah.
of pain. And I know, I mean, we can go on and on about this, but what is what is my understanding of pain, right? Or I guess now I'm kind of getting lost in my own thought here, but going back to that conversion, that just to meditate on it and practice that I should interpret this differently.
Yeah.
That's what I'm agreeing with, because I do have, instances, and now, now in my life, it's not like I practice this normally, but if I step on a nail, I'm sorry to say, I will try to see how far the nail will go before it actually starts to hurt,
A
and
little sadistic
a little, I'm sorry, but
or masochistic.
yeah. So, it's I understand that, and I can respect that point of view. But um, again, going back to differentiating good and bad. So, would you agree that the fact that you and I exist, is it or is it not by intelligent design? Would you argue that our minds as human beings, our bodies, are not in intelligent design?
Would you say that a spider's web is intelligent design?
I think so. Yes.
How did it learn to make the web?
Over time,
But where did it get that,
instincts.
and where did those come from? Correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a spider expert, but it's not like mammals where, the babies stay with their mother,
Okay. Yeah.
right? The eggs kind of just hatch and they go off into the world. They aren't born into a culture. They
Yeah.
kind of go off into the world and do their own thing.
So who is it? Where? Okay, I get where you're going.
How does each spider, without being taught, just know
That's what it has to do.
to make a web? Because a
Yeah.
web is a very intricate thing.
It is, and it's beautiful to see.
It's an art,
Yeah.
right? So how does every single spider know to make this web? How does every salmon that travels away from where they were born know how to get back to where they were born to continue the cycle?
I mean, my only response obviously is it's instinct, but
And where does that
and
instinct
where does
come
the
from?
instinct come from? Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, my answer to that question, where does that instinct come from, is genetics. It's hardwired into their DNA to do a certain thing. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because when you talk about intelligent design, I think of just the nature of the world and the nature of genetics. So, intelligent design meaning things happen a certain way because that is how they have to happen in nature. So, who determines that is just nature itself, right? If you think about the spider who can't make its own web, what happens to him,
It does.
right? And what happens to the albino deer,
It gets hunted. Or it dies from complications.
right? So, the intelligent designer in both of those situations is nature itself. It's the environment that animal, that the spider is born into,
Okay.
right? That ends up becoming the intelligent designer because you know it's just the way it has to be. It's because the deer is an easier target.
Okay.
It's because the spider is the easier target. And so that deer ends up dying, doesn't pass along its genes, and the spider ends up dying, doesn't end up passing along its genes. Therefore, there's going to be less and less deer that are albino and less spiders.
The less vulnerable. Yeah.
Exactly. It's basically just evolution at its finest, and I do believe that the environment is the intelligent designer
Okay.
of the world around us. And I think that's a great place to end this episode. Thank you all for joining us for our very first episode of the Astral Project podcast.
Let's go.
And we hope you enjoyed what we had to talk about today. Remember that we're not here to tell you how to live your life or tell you what to believe in. We're only here to get your wheels turning and make you think outside the box a little bit. So we hope to see you in the next video. And once again, I'm Allie.
And I'm Q.
And this is
The Astral Project.
Project.
Remember, question everything.